So I'm about to turn the camera around here in a minute and do a kind of a, I guess, an educational video, kind of a help video. Um, a lot of times on some of the social media sites and through some contacts of mine, I get questions about fishing. Obviously, I do a lot of fishing. Um, Most of it is fly fishing, and I'm not a detractor of spin fishing, whether it's a bait caster, a spinning reel, or even a spin cast, the push button reel. And the reason I want to do this video is because I think a lot of people really look, especially if they're big time fishermen or they've graduated in their fishing prowess. I went from a certain type of fishing to advanced, having the bait casters and all that fun stuff, and then fly fishing, which really took over. So for about 20 years, I was fishing regular tackle, and then in the last 12 to 15 years, it's been mostly fly fishing. I just enjoy it. I enjoy the hunt, if you will. That's an odd way to put it, but there's a lot of correlation in hunting big game as there is in fly fishing. There's a lot of prep work. Wow, it's really raining outside. Thunder, it's miserable out today, so I'm not going to do any videos outside. Anyway, so the correlation to fly fishing and hunting, there's some similarities in there. I can't hunt big game and deer and hog all the time, but I can take a fly rod and target species of fish with a fly rod, which is fun, especially if you're weird like that. But I do want to get this video started, so I'm going to turn the camera around, and when we get back, I'm going to have some things out. And I just wanted to do a discussion because I think there's what's old is new. What used to work still works. There's really no need, especially if you're the casual fisherman, taking your kids out. Maybe you live in a neighborhood that has a centralized lake or a pond, or you live near an impoundment or a reservoir, and you're going there for a picnic and you just want to go see what you can catch. Let's get to the point of this video. Okay, thank you very much. And action. Welcome back. So I said I was going to turn the camera around, and you see in front of you a myriad of fishing stuff. Okay, we have a rod right here, we have some lures, a tackle box, a book, all kinds of stuff. And what I want to get at today in this video is the simple form of fishing does not have to be complicated. When fishing becomes complicated and you get frustrated and you're not enjoying whatever it is that you're doing, typically you're going to stop doing it. It's like, because I'm not having fun. This isn't fun anymore. And that's kind of how my fishing graduated. And I'm not going to lie, this is my favorite fishing reel. Okay, I started with something similar to this. Now this is my favorite, but this is a Zebco 33. And a lot of people would say, well, that's just a kid's reel. That's just a kid's reel. Blah, blah, blah. Well, and the reason they call it that was this is the best reel style to teach somebody to go out and fish. So moving away from that, this is usually the next type of reel that someone graduates to, an open face spinning rod. spinning reel. And what's interesting is these are, we can't really say new, but these really didn't come into fruition in the United States until about the 1950s and 60s. They were brought over from Europe by a company called Abu, which we all know as Abu Garcia, and from Scandinavia. So these are not an American invention. We did change them a little bit to what theirs were like to make them a little bit more easier for the American culture. Then the bait caster reel is actually the oldest, one of the second oldest fishing reels. I should have brought one of my old ones out here. They've been around since the 1800s. Now, granted, they've been modernized quite a bit, but it's still a basic principle. There's a big barrel here in the middle, and then you have a crank on one side. You throw it out, and it zips. The problem with these new ones, because they've become so fancy, they also become very technical. And I have fished with bait casters for several years, and I would still always get the bird nest. And it got to the point where it wasn't fun. And there's a reason why a lot of these pro bass fishermen on their bass boats have each side of the gunnel of their boat is lined with rods. Let's say a dozen, 6 on one side, 6 on the other. It's because they're all set up to throw a different type of bait, whether it's a Texas rig, a Carolina rig, a topwater, a spinning bait, a buzz bait. They all have to be tuned to throw that particular bait or lure. And if you only have a few of these, 1, 2, 3, maybe 4, but if you're out fishing, a lot of times you're only going to take maybe 2 rods, especially if you're fishing from the shore. And getting a bird nest every time, or before you get everything dialed in, it becomes frustrating. It really does. So you have to fix that. Now you can get similar things with these. If you're throwing rooster tails or spinner baits, the line can get twisted and it loops around itself, and as you're reeling it in, you don't necessarily get a bird's nest, but you get a line bubble, which is kind of hard to explain. But then when you go to cast and you've got your bail open, it tends to wrap around the bail and you feel this tunk, and then it closes and you see that there's this big wad of line that retracted, and now you have to open the bail, pull all the line out until you find that line bubble, if you will, and then you have to straighten it out. So with that, on your rooster tails and spinner baits, you have to use a swivel to kind of counteract a lot of that line twist that develops. And then, of course, the fly rail. Now, fly reels, you can cast some tiny spinners. They're made by Joe Flies, but you have to have a lot of room to cast because there's that weight at the end of your leader counteracts the weight of the fly line, and it's really, you have to get a really good cast going. I've done it. It works. It's just not conventional. So getting back to the push button reel, the benefits to having a push button reel is just that right there. I push the button, the line comes out, if you can see it. As soon as I crank, line comes right back in. This housing kind of stops the line from getting really jumbled up, and then the pickups inside there, two or three little fingers that come up when you're spooling it back in, kind of creates a self-fixing mechanism for the line. So it's a beautiful design. It's very simple. The nice thing about a push button reel is it will throw everything that you see here. If I want to fish topwater, whoops, I'm stuck in my thing here. Anyway, you want to throw a topwater, throw a topwater. If you want to throw live bait, whether it's worms, minnows, whatever else, in a sinker, you can do that with your bobbers, so on and so forth. You want to throw rooster tails or spinners of just about any weight, you can do that. You want to throw a Texas rig with a weighted worm, you got the split shot at the top here, not split shot, but like a brass cone. You can throw that. You can do a finesse jigging, a worm. You want to throw buzz baits. You can throw some buzz baits, small ones, bigger ones, like so. You can throw that. You want to throw some crankbaits. There you go. Nice Rapala. You can throw that. And you have the sensation in the rod to do that. You want to throw some imitations, some minnows, weighted minnows. You can do that. All with this reel and a decent rod. There's no timing gears that you have to set. There's no drag you have to set. I have a drag. It's right here. That's it. That's mostly just to play the fish, really. If I'm sitting there with my worm or a minnow and a bobber, I'll set my drag down and let it just sit there and float and do whatever. And as soon as something takes it, it can run all it's want, and then I can just increase my drag, set my hook. It's all pretty easy. This is a newer one. This is kind of the family reel here. My daughter, oldest daughter, this is what she loves to fish with. And I am not, if she ends up using one of these for the rest of her life, I would be happy with it. The nice thing about these is if you have somebody also, let's say you have a guest, you're taking somebody fishing, right? And they're really not that good, and you don't want to spend your time fixing bird nests or a backlash in either one of those, you're really not going to have that in these. The Zebco 33, I would just stick with, if you can find a model similar to this one that has the metal casings and the graphite middle section here, I would do just that. I also have the Zebco Bullet, which I think I've done a video on that one, which is the all aluminum machined push button reel. But it's a beautiful thing, really. It's so simple, and I often wondered why we complicated ourselves by making that particular reel the showcase for all of the fancy fishing that's out there. And I really think a part of it has to do with marketing. Anytime they show something on the Outdoor Channel and fishing, guys are always promoting these. And I think it's because these guys make their money off of being paid sportsmen, just like a football player who does an ad for Adidas or Nike or whatever. Even though on a regular basis he may not wear those because he may find that they don't really fit his feet that well, but if he's in front of the camera, he's going to be wearing those shoes. And if you're a paid fisherman, say a big brand name fishing manufacturer says, hey, like Mitchell or somebody like that, Abu Garcia, they say, hey, we will give you X amount of gear. You fish with it. That's great. But the problem is these, for the casual fisherman, are so much more fun, so much easier, so much less hassle, time more enjoyable. You would be out there, you'd be more likely to take your kids fishing if they asked to go fishing and all you had was something like this or something like this. This is, you can catch this. This is doable. You can advance to this, especially if you're going to be going after bigger fish. These reels will do it. They're great. They mostly come in 3 or 4 different sizes. A micro, a medium, a heavy, and then like your big game reel for, you're going out saltwater fishing. or maybe even carp, something like that. You need a big reel. So they can graduate to that. But this, if you had, and another thing is these don't break the bank. Buy the good one, buy the metal-bodied Zebco 33 Authentic, I think is what they call it. A couple of rods. Let's say you have a family of 4. You could have 4 of these and 4 rods, and you're probably less than $150 in just rod and reels. Less than that. And then you can spend money on learning different techniques of fishing. You can learn how to set a Texas rig, a Carolina rig, how to run a buzzbait, how to run a finesse worm if need be. They'll do it. Do they do all of them? Does this and this rod setup do all of these at 100%? No. Because you have different, like some bait casters are finesse bait casters. They're very delicate. And then you have some that are big game reels. They're a little bit more forgiving, and they're for a different type of fishing. But you can fish every type of fishing, whether you're using hard baits, soft baits, buzz baits, topwater, or even your tiny spin baits. It is actually a funny story. I was at a local pond, and me and a friend of mine were out, and I had this with me, this rod, this reel, and we just could not get these fish to bite. And so we climbed into the brush and the rhododendrons on this pond, and I actually had a fly box in my backpack, so I pulled out line, held my rod over the water, I think it was a woolly bugger or something, and I dabbled it over the water, got it swinging just a little bit, and flipped it in the water, and then once it started to sink, I just twitched it a few times, and I caught, and the woolly bugger was weighted, so it was tied with some lead wrap, but I caught some really nice bluegill using a fly on a spinning rod. So imagination is everything. So if you're watching my channel, you know I do mostly fly fishing. I might start doing some still water videos on fishing if I get time. Maybe remove a weekend of fly fishing and spend some time out trying to catch some bluegill and bass and so on and so forth. I actually do that a lot with my fly rod. I go out to some of the local neighborhood ponds that I have friends that live there, and I take a fly rod. It's just, it happens. I just do it. I can't explain why. It's just fun. I think because it's minimalistic, if that makes sense. I can grab a fly reel and rod and a small fly box about this big with an assortment of flies, and I'm catching fish. The other thing with spin fishing is there's so many. Like, here's just 3 of my tackle boxes. I have backpacks and bags full of tackle that you can easily acquire over a few years, decades. It happens. But if you are really interested in getting out there and going fishing, or you have a family member, you have kids, maybe it's just you and your wife, your partner, whoever, and you want, hey, you know what, we're going to be at the park, there's a small lake there, let's see if we can catch a fish. Go out, buy a Zebco 33. Sometimes you can find them in a combo, where it's the rod and reel. But typically buy the one that is by itself in a blister pack, and then find a decent rod to go on it. It has to be a spinning rod, or a casting rod, sorry, where the reel sits on top, not on the bottom, but on top. All right. And one way you can tell that is guide is up here, reel seat is here, okay? That's the top of the rod, and that's what you use for either a push button reel or the dreaded bait caster reel, okay? And typically spinning push button and or bait caster rods have very small loops, even at the very end, whereas on a open face spinning rod, the guides are on the bottom and they start with a large ring and then they just get concentrically smaller as you get towards the tip. This is a two-piece rod. This is the actual one that came with it. It's the Zebco Platinum series. I don't even know if they make this anymore. This is a two-piece, line weight 6 to 12 pounds, lure weight 1/8 to 3/8 inch. Action is medium. That's pretty much the best route to go, is a medium action rod. It's a great way to learn to fish. Again, not a paid endorsement. I'm just going by my, I would say, couple of decades worth of fishing, and I've learned a lot. And what I've learned, especially through fly fishing, I've learned that just keep it simple. Again, if you're not going to enjoy it, you're not going to do it. If you get I don't want to, why am I so frustrated? Then if you have the notion in your mind that you want to go fishing, but you're like, every time I go out and I take that stupid bait caster, I'm constantly getting knots and bird nests and backlash, and I have to sit there and manage all of these different things every time I go out. Man, you're not going to go. This is the best, easiest Zen fishing reel out there. It's just a push button, simple. Now, if you got kids, buy the cheaper ones because they're going to drop it. It's going to get kicked. It's going to get dropped in the parking lot. Do whatever. They do make some nice ones. So, if you're going to do this and you're going to invest a little bit of money, get a little bit better setup. Like this one here. This one's been through a lot. This was my daughter's, and it's been dropped in the lake. It's been dropped in the parking lot. It's been through some stuff. But if ever we get to go fishing together, she always says, "Do you have my rod?" And okay, I'll go get it. And I grab this reel, the rod, and we go. So with that, if you have any questions, comments, what do you fish with? What do you like? Do you fish with only bait casters? Why? Do you fish with only open face? Okay, why? Do you completely dislike push button reels? Why? I'm fine with it. I'm just talking to some of those folks who are trying to get started and they want to go fishing, their kids want to go fishing. A lot of times the best way to get them started is just to keep it simple. Grab a push button reel, a rod, maybe a combo, get you a couple of bobbers, a bag of Gremlin split shot, and get a tub of worms, or just dig in the backyard, dig a hole, find some worms, put the dirt in a container, and the worms. I don't know if any people do that anymore, and you'll catch some pretty fun rabid bluegill. It's really a good time. Now, when you graduate, then start getting some topwater stuff, some rubber worms and some hooks and weights. It becomes, like I said, it becomes crazy because all of a sudden you have stuff like this. And what's nice is this reel, regardless of the weight of any of these, whether it's a diving crankbait, a topwater bomber, a weird crawfish, a buzzbait, articulated, it doesn't matter. This reel will throw all of those. It doesn't matter. Same with this box here, which is soft baits, which is worms and lizards and grubs and flukes and stuff like that. And then that container here, which is lots of rooster tails and some spinners. So that's just my 2 cents on why I think everybody should have a few of these in their fishing arsenal. If you're going to travel, it's a very compact design. You can actually take this thing apart. You can take the handle off of it. Really simple. You could use a quarter. Actually, it's loose. You can take a quarter, pop that thing off, put it in a bag, and then most of the rods come in 2 pieces. Each one of these is roughly 3.5 feet long, so it can sit in the floorboard of the back of your car, no problem. Just grab one of these and put a various different lures in there, different types of tackle. You have an entire afternoon's worth of fishing right there, and you're not having to make all kinds of adjustments. It's awesome. All right. Again, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, again, comments, just put it below. This is Lock and Hackle.